You're listening to the Lifestyle Business Show with Lucy Gordon, the podcast of building a more profitable business that gives you the lifestyle and freedom you desire. I share strategies to streamline your business, increase your income, and reclaim your time so that you can spend more time doing what you love. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Lifestyle Business Show. I am so excited to be starting this podcast with you and to be starting with the main topic, which is what actually is a lifestyle business. Lots of you might have heard the phrasing lifestyle business before and not really know what it is, think it possibly means people who are lazy or unambitious because they're not trying to hit huge financial targets, they're trying to work as little as possible. And that's sort of the point. It's not that those of us who run lifestyle businesses are lazy or unambitious, it's just that we know exactly what we want. So a lifestyle business is one that enables you to live the life that you want. It's for people who know exactly what they want from their life and they prioritise that over external expectations. Now, just to be clear, that's not someone who is building a hobby business, so something that is just on the side of something else they do, or just, to bring in a few £100s a month to be able to go out for dinner. It's about people who are building proper businesses, but one that enable them to live their dream lives. So this is people who are trying to build sufficient income to be able to pay all of their bills, pay all their expenses, do all the nice things that they want to do, and have a proper business, but one that is all about living the life they want to lead, rather than about working 24 hours a day. Lots of you will see, if you work in the online space, that there are all these things about hitting, your first 10k months, hitting your first million, having multi-six-figure launches, etc. And we feel like we're left behind if we're not hitting those targets and those goals. But I don't actually believe that's the case at all. I think, and you'll see this in some of the stories that they talk about once they get to a certain point, is that those people hit the monetary figure, they hit 100k, and then they're not satisfied by it. So they say, okay, I have to hit 500k, I have to hit 1 million, and the goalpost keeps on moving. And so they never get any satisfaction from it. And that's because they don't really know why they're trying to achieve it. And I think that is the biggest thing for me, is that if you don't know what you're aiming for, then you will never hit it. So hitting just an arbitrary monetary figure is not what's important. What's important is thinking, like, what do you actually want your life to look like? What do you actually want to do? Do you need to hit that monetary figure because it will enable you to pay off your mortgage? It'll enable you to hire a nanny. Whatever it is, the goal needs to be not monetary in my eyes. It needs to be about your life. And that, for me, is the whole point of a lifestyle business. It's creating freedom financially and timely, that's the word, with your time to be able to do exactly what it is that you want to do. And going back to that feeling of hitting the target but getting no satisfaction from it, that is exactly what led me to where I am now. I felt like in my other business I was taking one step forward but being pushed back 2 steps every single time, because I was striving to reach these goals that just didn't seem like they were getting any closer. And so when I shifted my mentality and my mindset to think about what my actual goals were, I realised none of them involved having millions of pounds in my bank account. They involved being able to go out walking with my dogs whenever I wanted, being able to sit in the garden all afternoon drinking rosé, being able to go down to Cornwall and visit my sister, whatever it was, all things that didn't actually cost that much money. And that's where I started changing my business, because I realised that all my business was giving me was stress and burnout. So let me take you back to the beginning of my story so that you can hear it in all its glory. I started my career in real estate. I was working for a real estate fund as an analyst. So I was running the numbers in terms of cash flow forecasting and doing the deal execution. So what that meant was that once a deal came under offer by the company, I would then take it over the line, dealing with the lawyers, etc., to get that all agreed and signed off and bought. And I also did all the debt management as well. So it was quite a stressful job and very detail oriented in terms of looking at the numbers all the time and having these conversations with lawyers and having to negotiate with banks and things like that. And I got to a point where I had a breakdown, effectively. One of my colleagues said something to me that just pushed me over the edge. And I had this breakdown where I was suffering with just really bad depression and anxiety. And I worked my way through it. I saw a therapist and I moved out of London. But they got to a point a couple of years later where I still just wasn't fully recovered. And I felt like my work wasn't helping with that. So I decided to hand in my notice and figure out what it was I was going to do. In the process of handing in my notice, I had some people ask me if I would do some freelance work. And given I didn't have a plan and I was just going to figure it out and live off my savings for a while, I said yes. And that is how I accidentally started my real estate consulting business. So in that business, what I was doing was building financial models for real estate investors. And it went really well. I had lots of inbound inquiries. I was making 6 figures a year. I was working really, really hard. I was getting referrals from clients and great feedback, but I was burning out every single year. And I tried all sorts of different things, and we will get into some of those in some later podcast episodes in terms of hiring teams and outsourcing things, but it never reduced my workload. I always felt like I was on. I was trading my time for money in such a way that meant that I couldn't really be ill. If I was ill, I wasn't making any money. If I was on holiday, I wasn't making any money. And every month, I was basically starting from zero again because all of my work was project-based work. So I had a project that would last 4 weeks or a project that would last 12 weeks, and then it would end and I would have to get another client and another project on board. And I didn't really see at the time a big issue with this because I was getting so many inbound leads that I always had the next project lined up and ready to go, which was great. And it meant that, as I said, I thought I was so great at running a business and I was so successful because I had this constant stream of income and constant stream of inbound leads. But whenever I tried to build the business up, whenever I tried to scale, it just wouldn't work. And so I was watching these other business owners seemingly working on things that were a lot less complicated than what I was working on, but making a lot more money. And so I was pushing myself to make more money because I thought, I have to make more money like these guys. And I would push myself, and then I would make a bad hire or sign on a bad client who turned out to be a nightmare. So I would burn myself out and I would be crying at my desk or going, one time I went back to my parents' house and cleaned their entire kitchen just to give me something that was a complete distraction from how I was feeling and the anxiety that I was suffering from. But every single time this happened and I got back on my feet again, I would just start the whole cycle again. I would never learn from it. I would just start again and carry on as I was and think, yeah, this is fine, it'll all work out. But that wasn't the case. I ended up having a client who was so awful and so difficult that I actually was like, I'm throwing in the towel. I can't do this business anymore. I can't work with these kind of people anymore. I can't do these kind of projects anymore. It's too difficult. And I can't keep putting myself through it. I need to focus on, I don't want to spend my whole life. I don't want to be 90 years old and have spent my whole life being stressed and anxious all the time. And it was in that moment that I decided to change everything. So instead of focusing my efforts on trying to hit arbitrary monetary figures, I worked out what it was that I wanted my life to look like. And I realised that I didn't need to have huge amounts of money to live a really nice life. I needed time. I needed time to spend in my garden. I needed time to go and visit my family. And that's when I realised that my business wasn't giving me the time that I needed to do any of those things. And that's when I started making big changes in my business. So rather than throwing the towel in, which is what I wanted to do in that moment, I thought, no, I'm going to pare back everything that takes up my time and only focus on things that are scalable without adding more time to my workday. And now that business, I didn't throw in the towel, I kept it going, generates me a minimum of 5k a month and takes me 2 to 4 hours a week to run. It wasn't an easy journey getting there, let me tell you. I did have to work hard at the beginning to set that up. But now I have so much time and freedom to do whatever I want. If I want to increase the revenue and scale the numbers up, I can work a little bit harder and get those numbers up. If I want to be able to spend more time in the garden, just leave it how it is. And it was in that process that I then realised I wanted to help other people not feel the way that I was feeling. So whether that's in their life or in their business, I wanted people to not be feeling resentment and anxiety and stress. I wanted to help people be able to create their dream lives, to live really, really beautiful lives, but that weren't full of stress, lives that enabled them to spend more time with their children, go travelling, pay off their mortgage, whatever it is that those people want, but without burning themselves out and using up all of their time. So that's why I started this new business, and that's why I've started this podcast now, is to tell more people and to share more people's journeys so that you can all see it. So in terms of being able to start or scale your lifestyle business, or to define what you want your lifestyle to actually look like, I came up with the DREAM framework, and it's actually the framework that I followed when I started making the changes in my original business. So it's called the DREAM framework. So the first step of the DREAM framework is definition. Defining your version of success based on your own internal standards, not external expectations. What I mean by this is picturing exactly what you want your life to look like, and then work out how much revenue you need to do that. So for me, that was about being able to spend more time with my family, being able to spend time in the garden, being able to go on holiday. And so I got a little spreadsheet together and I worked out my essential costs. So that was my household bills, food, etc., things that I can't live without, basically. Then the next number to think of is the nice to haves. So this is things like things that you absolutely don't need, but that would make your life pretty nice. So going out for dinner with your husband, taking your kids to a play event, going away for the weekend. Nice things that will make your life really nice, which is why they're nice to haves. And then the third number to think of is these would be jolly nices. So these are the things you absolutely can live without and that you don't need, and that actually you'd still have a pretty nice life if you only got to stage 2. Stage 3 is, okay, I want that handbag. I want to buy a boat. I don't know. Everyone's number is different. But when you define those, you can then work out, you then know exactly what you're striving for. So you're not striving for £1 million. You're striving for being able to go on holiday with your family, being able to take Fridays off, being able to go to that restaurant that you really want to go to around the corner. Whatever it is, you define what that means to you and your version of success. The next step is reflect. So reflecting on where you are today across your work, your money, your mindset, and your life. And you'll start to realise potentially that you're already slightly doing some of the things that you've just defined. Perhaps you already have enough savings to be able to buy yourself that handbag. Perhaps you already take 1 Friday off a month and you just want to up that to 2 Fridays. Perhaps your connection to work and to money is negative and you need to work your way through that. And perhaps the numbers that you were striving for before are not actually the numbers that you need. For me, when I did that reflection part, I realised that I already had enough money coming from interest on my savings and from a subscription model that I'd already started within my business to pay all my essential costs. So then I just needed to work out how to cover the nice to haves and the these would be jolly nices. And that's where I got to the next stage, which is elevation, where we elevate your strategy, systems and structure to be able to hit those goals. So what I mean by that is perhaps you productize or scale a product to be able to make more revenue on it. Perhaps you scale back your one-to-one work to be able to create more time. Perhaps you automate some things. And that's where I got to, okay, let's take away all that one-to-one bespoke work and let's focus on scaling the subscription model. The next stage of the dream framework is taking action. So you need to act intentionally towards those goals. We don't just set the goals and then hope they're going to happen. We have to set the actions and decide what they are. So the actions are, in my case, they were firing my clients, removing bespoke one-to-one work from my website, taking actions to reach that goal. And then the final stage of the dream framework is momentum. Through consistency, reviewing what you're doing, and iteration. It's not all just going to happen overnight. You're not going to suddenly land with a beautiful lifestyle business in your lab. You need to take consistent actions to get there, and you need to iterate and review to make things better. And by that's the sort of work that I would do, where I would perhaps look at my metrics and work out, okay, this thing isn't converting quite as high as I would like it to. What thing can I tweak to make the conversion higher, to make the conversion easier, and make my life more easy? So just to go back over that again, to remind you, the dream framework: definition, reflection, elevation, action, and momentum. So hopefully that's given you some food for thought today about what a lifestyle business is and actually what you're trying to work towards. I want you to go away from this episode and think about that definition element. Think about what you want your life to actually look like and see whether you can work out what your enough figure is. Work out how much you need to cover your essentials, how much you need to cover your nice to haves, and how much you need to cover your these would be jolly nices. I hope sharing my story has been really helpful and that you've seen some mirroring or reflections about your own story in there. I will continue to be open and honest during this podcast with you to share from the learnings and the mistakes that I have made. And what I want to leave you with today is that it's okay to not be living your dream life yet. These things take time. You won't get there tomorrow, but I really want you to think about what it is that you want from your life, from your business, and then we can work on the steps to get you there. Thank you so much for listening to this very first episode. I hope you didn't hear my dog snoring too loudly in the background, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for listening to the Lifestyle Business Show with Lucy Gordon. If you're ready to spend less time in your business, head to lucygordon.com/time to download your free guide.